They're researchers, innovators, entrepreneurs. As part of the EURAXESS Services Network and EURAXESS Worldwide webinar series, we are presenting to you today a topic which is part of a bigger umbrella of topics focusing on how to do a PhD in Europe. Today, we are going to talk about the Netherlands. Our speakers and experts on the topic today are Rosanne Anholt and Simone Cremers. I would like to give them a very warm welcome and introduce them briefly. Rosanne is the chair of the PhD Candidates Network Netherlands, a network that lobbies for the interests of PhD candidates in the Netherlands, such as better employment conditions, mental health, and social safety. She's also a PhD candidate and assistant professor at the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, at the Department of Political Science and Public Administration. Her dissertation, entitled Governing Insecurity and the Politics of Resilience, looks into the policy and practice of resilience building as a form of crisis governance, notably in the countries around Syria. Simone is working as a liaison officer at Academic Transfer. Together with the rest of the team, Simone is engaged and in close contact with their member organizations, which are research universities, university medical centers, and top research institutes in the Netherlands. In her job, she uses her experience in multitasking, project management, and communications, together with a high sense of customer service and relationship management, in order to serve Dutch research institutions and research talent the best she can. The team's mission is to help their members reaching the world's best scientists and academics, getting them interested in a career in the Netherlands, and establishing a long-term connection between candidates and organizations. With this short introduction, Rosanne and Simone, the screen is yours, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Vicky, for this kind introduction. I'm going to share my screen with you. Yes, and moreover, I'd like to thank EURAXESS for the opportunity to participate in this webinar and to tell a bit more about doing a PhD in the Netherlands. We are very keen on being involved in these kinds of initiatives, as promoting higher education and working in Dutch science is part of our core business. All right, allow me to take you into the schedule of this webinar. First, we'd like to take the opportunity to tell a bit more about our organizations. Of course, we will also explain what is meant by a PhD in the Netherlands and why you should absolutely do this here. And furthermore, you'll get introduced in ways to find opportunities, how to get a PhD position, and we go a bit beyond the PhD. All right, allow me to tell you a bit more about academic transfer before we dive into the real topic of doing a PhD in the Netherlands. Academic transfer is the cooperative association of Dutch knowledge institutions, as Vicky told you already. So the Dutch universities, university medical centers, and research organizations are members of our association. We support researchers in building a scientific career, offering a complete overview of academic job openings in the Netherlands. At our platform, you'll find jobs for every academic at every stage in their career. Yes. At academictransfer.com, we publish over 6,000 jobs per year. You can set email alerts, match your resume with vacancies, sign up for events, search for career advice, and read blogs about PhD experiences. Originally started as a job board, we are currently transforming into an interactive career platform, which is called Academics Connected. And this is happening in close cooperation with our members. I will tell you more later on, but you can already create a free account. Let me now give the floor to Rosanne.
Thank you very much, Simone. Very happy to be here and to talk to you today. Also a little bit about the Dutch PhD Candidates Network Netherlands, PNN. We are a national interest groups for PhD candidates in the Netherlands. This includes everyone who is doing a PhD at a Dutch institution, and we've been doing that since 1987, which is quite a long time. And our members are the local PhD representatives, representative organizations at various Dutch universities and the university medical centers. So at all these institutions, they have a PhD representative organization, and they are the ones who are our members, and through them we can also reach every PhD candidate in the Netherlands. Currently we have quite a large board consisting of 9 members, and we have 8 specific portfolios. So we focus, for example, on diversity at universities. We have a particular portfolio for international PhDs. We focus on labor and social affairs, external PhDs, and I will tell you a little bit later about what that means. But we also focus on quality, on career, and on open science practices. And we have one specific portfolio for when you are a PhD candidate at a university medical center. Next slide. Thank you. So a little bit more about what we do. So basically, we are an organization that stands in between these local PhD representative organizations at the institution and between various other partners in the academic field within the Netherlands. So at these institutions, you can see on the right side of the slide, you have these, again, the local representatives. These are often on a central level of the university. What you also see is that there's often PhD councils at the faculty level, and they are then so-called the members of the central PhD organization, and they again represent PhD candidates. So through these local representatives, we can again get through all these PhD candidates. But what we then do, we try to get information on what is happening within these respective institutions, what kind of issues are they facing, and we take it up to a higher level. So on the other side of the slide, you see just an example of organizations that we are in contact with. So for example, the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science. We are in contact with the Dutch Association of Universities, as well as the Dutch Federation of University Medical Centers. And these 2 organizations, together with the ministry, they represent the institutions. So we try to, the information that we get from the local representatives, we try to take it up with, for example, the ministry or these, or the University Association, or the one for the University Medical Center, to see if we can find common solutions. But also, of course, we are in close contact with other interest groups. For example, the one for postdocs in the Netherlands called Postdoc NL. We are in close contact with the Young Academy, which is part of the Royal Academy for Science in the Netherlands, but also with labor unions, for example. So the AOB and the FNV are large labor unions that we're in close contact with. So in this kind of like network is where we move, and we try to lobby for better rights for PhDs. Next slide, I think. And I think it's yours, Simone.
Yes, thank you, Rosanne.
Yeah.
What is a PhD, and what does it actually mean to do a PhD? Although the definitions on the right side of the screen could be applicable, my personal favorite is actually permanent head damage. PhD officially stands for Doctor of Philosophy, and it's the highest academic degree you can obtain. Here you see the official description of a PhD, which is stated in the system of Dutch universities. So it's about conducting and publishing scientific research based on the department's research plan and in consultation with the doctoral thesis supervisor or assistant, with the aim of contributing to the development of scientific knowledge and understanding in a particular field of research, proved by the conferral of a doctorate within a specified period. So You'll be trained to act as an individual scientist, do research on your own, with help from others, and under supervision of a professor, with the aim to publish a book or several articles. In the Netherlands, doing a PhD normally takes about 4 or 5 years, but you need to calculate some additional time to actually publish your research.
Yeah, and I can say that publishing your research sometimes may take quite a while indeed. In the Netherlands, there are sort of 2 ways in which you can do your PhD. So we have what is so-called standard PhD trajectories, and we have the non-standard PhD trajectories, or categories, I should say. Standard PhD, and this is definitely one of the main advantages of doing a PhD in the Netherlands. So most PhDs are actually employed by the PhD awarding institution. So at the university, medical center, or at a normal university, you are an employee, which also means that you're protected by a collective labor agreement, you get a salary, and so on. Then you also have the non-standard PhD categories, and those are increasingly common. So what we have here, we have sort of like 2 versions of that. So we have bursary PhDs, which are much more common outside of the Netherlands. So these PhDs have a fellowship or a grant. Sometimes these fellowships or grants are awarded by a university or a Dutch research institution, or maybe even your home country. So we see, for example, a lot of bursary PhDs that have a research fellowship from their home country. At some universities, there's also the possibility of a so-called top-up grant. Living in the Netherlands can be quite expensive, and some universities have the option that they give you a small fellowship on top of the fellowship that you receive, for example, from your home country, to make it even with employed PhDs. So check with your university if this is a possibility. Not every institution does it, but some do. Besides the bursary PhDs, you also have external PhDs. These are often PhDs that do the research in their own time. For example, they already have a job somewhere, and their employer says, "Hey, you can get 1 day off to work on PhD research." So often it's in their own time and by their own sponsorship. And then what does the PhD trajectory actually look like in the Netherlands? So you basically start with registering at a graduate school. So a graduate school is often organized at faculty level. So often universities have more than 1 graduate school. Within this faculty graduate school, you get registered. Sometimes you also have a system in which you create an account and you can keep track of all the courses that you've done and the arrangements that you made with your supervisors and so on. In the Netherlands, we have something called what would translate in English like the 4 eyes principle. So it means that almost every PhD has at least 2 supervisors. Most of the times it is at least 1 full professor and, for example, an associate professor who supervises you more on a day-to-day basis. But actually you can have even more. Some PhDs have, for example, 3 supervisors or even 4. Sometimes this can complicate things a little bit, but as long as your supervisors can all get along, it will actually be beneficial to you. Often what you do at Dutch institutions is that you create a training and supervision plan or something along those lines. Sometimes it is called differently. But what this basically means is that you write a plan about what you're going to do. So for example, you make arrangements with your supervisors on how often you meet, what is kind of like the frequency of your meetings, and what will you discuss in the meetings, but also what kind of courses will you take. So often PhDs have to do around 30 credits of coursework. Sometimes you can do less. You always have to check with your graduate school to what extent you can get some exemptions, but the standard is that you get 30 ECTS. And you include these also in your training and supervision plan. And then, as Simone already mentioned, you can basically choose whether you want to write a monograph, so a book, or you can write articles. Often it's It's between 3 or 4 articles, but of course, these are all arrangements that you have to make with your supervisor. The benefit of articles is often that in Dutch academic culture, it's quite focused on publications. So if you can publish during your PhD already, it often also makes the chances on the academic labor market afterwards a little bit higher. But this depends, of course, also on your discipline. So always talk about this with your supervisors. Then what is nice about doing a PhD in the Netherlands as well is that you can get some teaching experience. So for example, supervising bachelor or master thesis students, or giving some classes, running workshops and so on. This is a really nice way to really experience what academic life in the Netherlands is like. And you also get the opportunity, if you wish to do so, to get your university teaching qualifications, or BKO in Dutch. This is sort of like a half-year program where you once a week have a class on all kinds of practicalities related to teaching. It can be quite a lot of fun, and it really helps you improve your teaching. So I would definitely recommend that. So this is in a nutshell what the PhD in the Netherlands looks like.
Thanks, Rosanne. All right, let's explain how research is funded in the Netherlands. There are 3 ways how research can be financed. The so-called first, second, and third flow of funds, which you can here see indicated by the blue arrows. In short, this is the very simplified scheme. On top, you see the Dutch government and external sources. The first 2 flows are provided by the Dutch government. The first flow goes via the Ministry of Education directly to the universities. This is the basis of education and research activities of the universities. And with this financial flow, all salaries of professors and researchers are paid, but also buildings, labs, and so on. So this is really the flow that goes directly from government to research. Unfortunately, there's not much left for free research. Mostly this is for paying salaries and buildings. So the most fundings in the Netherlands to do research is allocated through national research organizations, such as the Dutch Research Council, abbreviated in Dutch as NWO. We call it the second flow of funding, and NWO is by far the largest funder within this flow. Each year, they invest almost 1 billion euros in curiosity-driven research, research related to societal challenges, and research infrastructure. The Council selects and funds research proposals based on recommendations from expert scientists and other experts in the Netherlands and abroad. They have several calls for proposals in different schemes and programs on the very basis of competition. And then there's the third flow of funding with external finances coming from, for example, the European Research Council, from industry, etc. External funding goes to the university, which then pays for your position or a research group. All right, let's explain why you should definitely do a PhD in the Netherlands. In global rankings, Dutch universities are doing pretty well. We only have 14 research universities, but they are highly regarded internationally. Most of them are actually among the top 2% of the 17,000 universities worldwide. And that's an achievement we're quite proud of. What are the pillars of this success? Well, our researchers are really productive. We are second in terms of number of publications per researcher, and Dutch publications are frequently cited, and we have a focus on international collaboration. 36% of our researchers are internationals. As explained before, it's quite common to be a university employee, so it's mostly a paid employment contract for a PhD candidate. Furthermore, Dutch research organizations offer a variety of research fields and interdisciplinary approaches, and you can become part of an excellent graduate or research school. Yes, here you see the ideal career path for scientific staff at a university. After your master, you can start a PhD, one or several postdocs, and on the very top is the full professorship, There are only a few who reach this top. Not everybody can stay in academia, and reality is that many have to look for a job outside of the university. In this pyramid, you can also see what sets a PhD in the Netherlands apart from other countries. In most countries, you are considered a student when you do a PhD. You have to pay tuition fees or you have to bring fundings to do your PhD. But in the Netherlands, the regular scheme is that you are employed by the university. So for the majority of cases, a PhD is regarded as a job in the Netherlands rather than a student position. But now you are probably still wondering, why should you come to the Netherlands in the first place? Allow me to do just a little bit of Netherlands branding. The Netherlands is one of the best non-native English-speaking countries in the world. English language skills are very good, and most people can speak fluent English. Nevertheless, it's appreciated when people learn some Dutch words. The Dutch are mostly open-minded and tolerant, and open to new opportunities. They will approach you friendly, but in quite a direct way. It's what we call a real getting things done mentality. We are on the top 10 list of best countries to live in for a good work-life balance. Quality of life in general is really high standard in terms of, for example, quality of air and water, levels of income, access to a high level of healthcare, employment, and education. We also have an excellent public transport infrastructure. Buses, trams, and trains are available and all easy and quick to use to navigate yourself and to explore the country. And please don't forget cycling. In the Netherlands, the most popular way of daily transport and part of the Dutch way of life. It's fun, it's convenient, economical, and quite healthy. And finally, our country has a lot to offer in terms of, for example, museums, theaters, cultural activities, architecture, creative industry, Dutch design, and several properties and nominations on the World Heritage List. And for a relatively small country, the Netherlands have a rich variety of nature, including national parks and beautiful coastal areas.
Yes, thank you, Simone. So besides, of course, enjoying all these things that the Netherlands have to offer, what can you do during your PhD to get involved with the academic world within the Netherlands? So there's a lot of things you can do. For example, you could sign up for your faculty PhD council. Sometimes there are also advisory boards connected to your specific faculty graduate school that you could join to give advice on, for example, PhD policy and solutions for issues that come up and so on. But also, you could, for example, apply to become a member of the Central University PhD representation. That would mean that you become a member also of PNN, the organizations that I am a part of. You could also choose, when you're an employee, to become part of the University or Faculty Works Council. This means that you basically advocate for better workers' rights, and you do so together with a lot of other employees within the university. And it's a really nice network to also get to know other people, other PhDs, as well as other employees of the university. Of course, you can also join PNN. So every year we are looking for new board members. So our board basically changes every year, but some people like to stay a little bit longer. So definitely keep an eye out on our website whether there's any vacancies available, because it will be super interesting to learn more about national PhD policy and issues that arise at the various universities within the Netherlands and how you could improve the situation for PhDs here. Also, of course, you could learn some Dutch. As Simone already said, it's very appreciated by the Dutch if you learn a little bit of their language, even though almost all of us speak pretty well English. Some of the Central University PhD organizations actually provide some Dutch courses or subsidies for Dutch courses, so for a subsidized price. So definitely get in touch with your representatives at your institution to see what kind of activities they offer, what kind of courses they offer, and this will, give you access to quite a nice network within the institution and with other PhDs. But it's not just within the institutions that there's events and events organized. It's also on a national level. So we have, for example, various institutions such as the Royal Netherlands Academy of Science, which I already mentioned, the KNW in Dutch. They sometimes offer webinars or workshops, or recently they organized the Academiemiddag, the Academy Day, with discussions around the state of science in the Netherlands. Simone also mentioned the NWO, so the Dutch Research Organization, and there's various other organizations as well. Sophocles is one that often organizes webinars as well around issues that are being discussed, which are happening within the academic landscape. And for example, also Young Science in Transition. So in the Netherlands, what we see is a movement of scientists and academics who want to move towards more open science, more caring universities. And Young Science in Transition is one of those organizations that is from the younger, the early career academics, as well as PhDs who want to help with this movement, which is really nice. So these are all kinds of like organizations, initiatives that you can get involved in. So definitely keep an eye out for these particular organizations. Keep an eye out on Twitter and so on, because a lot of stuff is going on that could help you make some friends within the Netherlands. Yes. Oh, that was it. when it gets tough. So of course, a PhD is not just it's not just nice. Sometimes it gets really tough. It's a tough trajectory, and sometimes you can get stressed or you can get lonely. Also, of course, if you come from abroad, it's sometimes difficult to make friends, and you might feel lonely or you might feel isolated, especially now with the corona crisis going on. So these are some tips and tricks for when it indeed gets tough. So often you'll be able to talk to your supervisors or your colleagues. Everyone has gone through this journey, so they also know how tough it is. In the Netherlands, it's quite common to talk about these kind of problems, so don't be afraid to step up and speak to your colleagues about these kind of issues. But also your faculty or your central PhD council is there to help you. So when any issues arise with your research project or with your supervisors, you can always get in touch with the PhD representatives because they are there to help you. Also, of course, you have the graduate school. So don't be afraid to reach out if you have any questions, any issues that come up. And related to that, often at the faculty level as well as the central level, there are confidentiality counselors that you can talk to about anything in a secure setting. At some universities, it's now common to have a confidentiality counselor that is specific for PhDs. So they will be trained in the specific issues that PhDs run into. Some institutions are also now starting to have PhD-specific psychologists. So what we see is that already for a while, quite a few universities have student psychologists to help students deal with issues that arise during their studies. But more and more institutions are recognizing that PhDs are struggling with some of these issues as well. It's a tough trajectory, so access to PhD psychologists can be super helpful. So definitely check with your graduate school or with the Central PhD Council whether this is available at your institution. And of course, at every institution, you also have a company doctor and a company social worker that you can get in touch with. And of course, it's always super useful to have friends. So definitely invest in building up a social network, whether it's with other international PhDs or with your colleagues or with others you meet at the sports club or your language classes. It's definitely good to invest in having a social network around you during a tough trajectory that is the PhD.
Yes, thanks, Rosanne. Of course, you want to know where to find PhD positions. First of all, please check the online niche job boards. Of course, for example, our very own platform, Academic Transfer. where you find numerous PhD positions in the Netherlands. As we speak, we offer over more than 900 job openings, among which are about 300 PhD positions. Of course, also check the EURAXESS website. They list thousands of vacancies and fellowships from more than 40 European countries and other regions in the world. And you can check other websites like the ones mentioned here. You can also find positions via social networks such as LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and ResearchGate. And opportunities are also offered at career fairs and international PhD workshops, where you can meet with Dutch university professors and delegates and get the chance to have a one-on-one interview, which is actually a great opportunity to talk about your research ideas. At the Academic Transfer website, you'll find upcoming examples of these events. And finally, personal sites and blogs of researchers also announce vacancies. As I told you before, Academic Transfer is currently transforming into an interactive career platform, a real community which is called Academics Connected. This platform is still under construction, but you can already sign up for a free account if you want to be found by university recruiters. So I warmly invite you to become part of the career platform for doing research in the Netherlands. It supports researchers in different career stages who want to continue in research and future jobs and who pursue a career in the Netherlands. We strive towards an interactive community for researchers and a place for employers to establish sustainable relations with future employees. Now you can already present your research profile, and in the future you can explore career steps, read testimonials, do self-assessments, and connect with other researchers and extend your network. All right, probably most of you still have one question. How do I get a PhD position? Unfortunately, there are more people interested in a PhD than there are positions, so only the best will get through. But there are definitely some things you can do yourself to make the searching process a little bit easier. Let's start with some requirements that almost every Dutch university will ask for. In the Netherlands, you need to finish your master's degree before you are allowed to do a PhD. And please list your courses and grades. During the application process, you'll always need to present your course list, and this is something you can already prepare. Another advice is to include the titles of your dissertations in your CV. This way, the professor gets an idea of your research interests and experiences. If an article of you got published, it goes without saying that you mention it as well. And if you want to do your PhD in the Netherlands, make sure you have an excellent level of English. Most universities will ask for a TOEFL or IELTS proof.
And then often when you apply for a PhD position, it's also important to include references. So look for 2 or 3 references, and these might be, for example, professors that know you well, or your thesis supervisor, or even a supervisor of a research internship that you've done. Make sure that they describe how you've done your research and your quality and skills that relate to doing research. Often it's also good to, for example, your motivation letter, to summarize examples of independent work as well as teamwork. For example, think of work you've done around data analysis, or whether you've written papers with others. It's often good to make the examples as concrete as possible. And as Simone already mentioned, if you have any publications, definitely include those, because these are very important and will definitely give you an advantage over other candidates. Also, you have to write a research plan. This often comes up in the second round of interviews for a position, and you will basically, within this research plan, it's basically your research proposal. So in it, you will write about what you will do research on, and sometimes this is already a given because it is included in the vacancy. But be very explicit about your approach. They will definitely like to see what kind of methods do you intend to use, and what kind of data will you derive from those methods. Feasibility is also an important part of this. They want to see that you have good insight into what is feasible within the 3 or 4 years that you have for your PhD research. And also it's always good to think about what does it add to the current academic, both theoretical and practical debates about a specific topic that you will do your research on.
Absolutely true. Furthermore, proactivity is appreciated, so feel free to contact the professor. In every vacancy on our website, below the paragraph additional information, you can find the contact details of the professor. It goes without saying that you need to do research into the group, faculty and university and some recent work. And please follow the stated application procedure and make sure that you send every document they ask for.
And then, of course, it's also important to be yourself and to brand yourself. So be yourself. If you're really interested in the research topic, it will show. If you're not really interested, it will show as well. So this is really important to also show your enthusiasm for a particular topic. And you need to brand yourself. So for example, you could think about blogging about your research interest. Perhaps you are active on LinkedIn or Twitter to kind of like make yourself show as someone who is connected to this particular topic. This is definitely also something that you could do during your PhD. For example, to write articles for the newspaper or to write blogs on LinkedIn or post on Twitter about this topic. It will really make you feel connected to the research topic, also in the public eye. And this will, of course, also help with networking. Networking is super important. Sometimes it might be scary to approach someone to ask them about how they've enrolled in a particular position that they have or how they do their research. But remember that people love talking about their research. Often they're super interested in the topic and they will definitely love to talk to you about this. So don't be afraid, don't hesitate to contact someone that you find, whose research you find interesting, to invite them for a virtual or an actual cup of coffee to talk about their research. And then finally, it's very important to stay motivated and to be prepared. Of course, it's quite a competitive field, and you might not immediately get a PhD position when you apply for it. But rejection is also a part of academia. For example, also when you submit a paper and it gets rejected, you will work on it again and you will submit it again, and the next time you might succeed. So being resilient and not giving up is super important.
Rosanne, are you going to continue?
Yes,
Shall
I thought you would do this slide, but maybe we can do it together.
Sure. Definitely.
Yeah, so beyond the PhD, when you have it, then what is next? So of course, it's important to think about what kind of skills have you gained during the PhD trajectory. And as Simone already said, not everyone can stay in academia and get to the full professor level or wants to do that. So what are the skills that you gain during a PhD that might also be interesting for other organizations? Think about a ministry, think about an NGO, think about business. So how do you translate these kind of skills that you gain during the PhD into something that is interesting for these different institutions? So think about analytical skills. So during your PhD, you have been working with theories, you have been working with data analysis. So analytical skills, you will be very, very strong on that, but also critical thinking. So a lot of research is, of course, built on deconstructing and critiquing others' work in order to add to that with your own research. So critical thinking is an important one as well. And don't forget that you'll be an excellent project manager after your PhD. You know, you're managing your research project, you're managing your data. Sometimes you will also organize events, talk to people for interviews, for example. So you're managing the full project from design to execution and to reporting, and often dissemination as well. So for example, not just when you publish a paper, but also when you write a blog about it or give a presentation on it. Yes. In this sense, you're also gaining leadership and management experience. especially when you, for example, also work with a student assistant who helps you during your project. Most of the departments at universities are quite intercultural. So there's various international colleagues. You will work with international colleagues from various countries, various nationalities. So you also have the opportunity to develop intercultural sensitivity. And then, as I already mentioned, teaching and mentoring students or thesis supervision, for example, you have lots of opportunities to do this. And this can also, of course, be an asset in a job outside of academia. For example, when you want to give training or when you want to work with students at a different kind of institution. Simone, am I forgetting anything?
No, I think you've explained it perfectly. We truly believe that these skills are valuable in and outside academia, and not only in the Netherlands, because after your graduation, you can work everywhere. You're a true global citizen.
Absolutely.
All right, to conclude, but this is only the beginning. If you are looking for a job, prepare for your next career step by signing up for a free account at academictransfer.com, and please stay tuned for further developments. Also visit factcard.nl to find all relevant information about coming to the Netherlands, doing research here, living, studying and working here. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us.
Definitely.
I think we have come to an end of this webinar, right?
Yes, I think so too.
Yes, we know it's a lot of information, and it won't be easy to obtain a PhD position, but hopefully our information and tips will help you. It will take a lot of motivation and preparation, and sometimes it feels safe to stay in your comfort zone. But our final tip would be, please step outside of this comfort zone and challenge yourself, because we think that's where the true magic happens. So thank you for your attention, and we wish you all the best in your next career step.
Yes, thank you so much for listening in.
There, Simone, there, Rosanne. This was an amazing presentation, a full coverage of really, truly how to do a PhD in Europe. You definitely convinced me. So if I were to apply for a PhD, my next destination would be very happily the Netherlands, not only from the research perspective, but obviously from the cultural as well. So thank you so much again for providing us with the detailed, insightful presentation. And I also, on behalf of all of the researchers around the world, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
both of you for the cooperation.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.